It's the DC Crossover Podcast with your hosts, Mike Cerrone and Ben Simpson.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DC Crossover, episode number 60. That is Mike Cerrone. I am Ben Simpson. You can hear us right on thecontender.com. That's Contender with a K. And our show airs right after Bill Rowland's live show every Tuesday on the Contender at noon Eastern Time. But you can catch the show in a variety of ways: Spotify, Apple, a lot of different ways to watch the show, and and listen to our hilarity. I'd say, Mike.
Right.
Listen to Mike's gripes. Listen to my. My occasional rant here and there.
True.
We have fun here on the DC Crossover. Follow us on Twitter at the DC Crossover and at Cerrone16. Mike likes to get in fights with Penguins fans on Twitter. We talked a little bit about Twitter last week.
I got someone blocked. I blocked him.
Added to the list. Added to the block list. And it is also, as we are recording this, it is Mother's Day. So shout out to both of our moms, Mama Cerrone and Mama Simpson. Two of the strongest ladies out there, big sports fans.
Yeah.
They had to deal with our various athletic activities growing up, taking us to our games and showing up and stuff like that. I mean, I'll experience this with my kid, and you will experience it with future Mike Jr. But you think about it, and think about how many games we played growing up and how many games our parents had to show up to and had to drive us to. I mean, you were a superior athlete in the lacrosse world, so I'm sure they were driving you all over the place for lacrosse. For me, it was a lot of travel baseball tournaments all over the state. I mean, it's a pain in the butt if you think about it. Like, I can't believe they did that for us.
Well, I mean, I grew up playing baseball my entire life. I just had to. I switched sports in high school because, I mean, it's a long story, but my high school was very political, and the baseball team just wasn't a good fit. Not to mention that
we'll get into that story another day.
Yeah, another day, another time, maybe another beer. But yeah, that was when I changed over. My best friend was actually I think one of the best lacrosse players in the entire Nova region. So I got to learn from him and different things of that nature. But yeah, when I was growing up, I played travel baseball for a few different years. And so doing all that kind of stuff, different basketball tournaments, and I mean, I played basketball. I did play football, baseball, golf. I mean, I did everything. That's probably why I have two bad knees now. So
for sure,
when you have two multiple ligament breaking down of your knees, then it's kind of hard to move.
Shout out to your mom for taking you to all those places.
Yes, very much so. And she loved doing it, at least when she got to watch and not got roped into doing the concession stand and selling hot dogs and trying to watch through that little hole over there at Bill Allen Field. Bill Washington, actually, it was the baseball field over there by Sterling Park. But that was way back in the day, Lower Loudon Little League. That was
Lower Loudon Little League.
Those are the great.
LLLL.
Yep. There it is. But shout out to my mom. Happy Mother's Day to you and all the moms out there. I got a nice little get together at my aunt's place. She ordered Olive Garden, which some people are very, very, Olive Garden sucks. Olive Garden's terrible.
Oh, I'm always an Olive Garden fan.
It's noodles. I mean, let's be honest here.
Exactly. Look, nobody. You don't go to Olive Garden for the authentic Italian experience of handmade pasta. Now they may make it handmade, but it's definitely not the same as what you get over in motherland Italy.
Yeah.
But you know what? I never knock the places like the Red Robins and the IHOPs and the Olive Gardens of the world that just make simple, easy, accessible food, man. I mean, that was growing up, the Pizza Hut buffets and things like that.
Right.
But Olive Garden, the bread, I mean, we all know the breadsticks are solid.
True.
We'd crush them easily. So what was the Olive Garden spread?
So basically my aunt asked everybody to text her an order of what you wanted. And basically, I couldn't really think of what I wanted, so I just went with the nice traditional chicken Alfredo.
Solid. Always a solid pick.
Very, very, very solid pick.
You get a little protein. You get a little carbs.
Yeah, there was a lot of chicken in that thing today. I was like, whoa, man, they killed a whole entire chicken for me.
A little double meat.
But yeah, I guess it might have been double meat. I hope I didn't get charged for that. I still have to Venmo my aunt. But at the same time, I got the chicken gnocchi soup, which was really good.
Okay.
That was solid. Not a lot of chicken in that one. I guess they used it all for the fettuccine. But at the same time,
I mean, it still sounds delicious.
The best part is dipping the breadsticks in that thing. That's just
you get that.
That's the
you
move.
get the Alfredo sauce afterwards that you just dip the
yeah.
breadsticks in, or you get a little side of marinara and dip the breadsticks in. You can't go wrong with Italian food. It's universally loved.
When you're there, you're family. That's what they say.
When you're there, you're family, and that is true. We have a lot to get to. Before we get to our show, though, I did want to touch on. So Mike occasionally comes to the show with a little something that maybe upset him throughout the week, so I want to hear what was the big upsetting moment of this week.
So I usually text Ben every now and then just to remind myself, so I can go back and look at our text thread and say, okay, this is what I got to talk about in the show. So I understand people have been doing virtual for a long time, and I'm talking about more the educational field, where a lot of the teachers have been emailing a lot, and so have the principals, and so have the office staff, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, your wife is in the office staff now, so I'm sure she's been a part of some of this as well. And I'm not saying
emails are a flying.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I'm not saying she's a culprit of this, but I work at 2 different elementary schools, so I'm getting double the emails. And one of my elementary schools, I'm not going to name one of them, basically, they like to send a lot of motivational emails all the time, and it's just like, it gets a little overwhelming every now and then.
Is it like the, fall 7 times, get up 8?
Something like that.
Sort of stuff?
Yes.
Like those weird phrases.
Yeah, but they also sent an email today about Mother's Day. And I'm a dude. Like, why don't send it to the moms? Like, what if there's a teacher that's not a mom? Or something like that? And it's like, come on, now. You don't have to send it to everybody. You don't have to reply all. So that's my gripe. Is there's 2 different things about email etiquette and email, I guess you could say, smarts, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. The first thing that is a gripe, and I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. The first gripe is when people have no idea how to write an email. And when I say that, I mean they're putting the body of the message in the subject line,
which is an incredible move.
Which is like, I mean, it's like, so you see the subject and it's like a sentence, and then you look at the body of the whole entire message, and
there's nothing there.
There's nothing there, or it just says like Peggy or something like that. Like it's like their signature. It's like, do you not know how to write an email?
My boss does that. My boss does that sometimes. It's like, what? Why? Like, what? He puts the message into like, hey, I need you to do this thing, and that's the subject line.
Right. I don't get it.
I've
it's
seen
like
that too.
Email's been around since. I mean, I'm 29. Email's been around since AOL, and even before that, probably back when I was in like middle school. Like, it's not that hard. It's not that hard to figure it out, and it's always like. And I don't want to. I don't want to date.
And it's not even like it's there. They're making it that like it's not like it's simpler to throw it in the subject line versus nowadays we all have email on our phone and stuff too. The boxes are right next to each other. So you might as well just type the message in the message space. It's not saving you any time putting it in the subject line.
Right. And so that's one of the biggest things that I have is people just don't know how to do that. The last one I have is the reply all button. The infamous reply all. Can you stop replying all? I'm a specialist. I'm a PE teacher. Why are you talking about classroom teachers and talking about this student or that student or what this IEP plan is we're going to do here and this? I'm like, I don't even teach this kid. I don't even know who this kid is. And I'm getting a chain of 7 emails in a span of 2 hours.
It's clogging your email box.
I know. And I'm a little OCD when it comes to my email or my text threads or something like that. I like to delete and keep it clean.
Man, you would hate my email.
Oh, man.
I get like 50 emails a day probably for different work stuff. I got all these different like boxes that they go to, labels and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's all over the place.
So, like, my Outlook email, for instance, for school, I usually see if there's, like, a chain, I'll try to delete, like, the first, say if there's a chain of 7, I delete the first 6, and I have that one email so I can just scroll and read if I need to.
Yeah.
It just irritates me because, like, people are just replying all left and right, and it's like, please, just leave me out of it. Like, I can't have 100 emails that don't even have to do with me. They don't
No,
pertain to me at
it's
all.
the
It just gets under my skin real easily. And I wasn't having the greatest day, I think, on Wednesday, and I got I literally had maybe 17 emails within an hour, none of which had anything to do with me. I was
see my Gmail email box here. Look at that number there. It might be backwards.
5,600 emails. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, 5651. And that's I've got about 7 different email accounts for all the various things I do.
Oh boy.
So it's a lot of it's just spam though. I mean, you get so much
Right.
spam email every day too, and
Well, whenever I see something like that, whether it has to do with like I did a reservation the other day, and now I'm getting emails from like Open Table or something like that.
Oh yeah, I know Open Table.
There he is. He knows what it is.
I've worked a little in the Open Table world.
And I ended up clicking on it, the unsubscribe button, and it had I was selected for 7 different email chains to get. I'm like, how did I do this? All I went on is Yelp.
Email's the worst. It's
man.
it's like how people used to get, and we still get in our regular mailbox. You get all the spam mail of
Right.
all the ads and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the email has become that, and so I don't know what the next thing is that for us to actually not get spammed with
Right.
every second of every day.
And
But
hey,
now companies send you texts sometimes. too.
Dude, I randomly get texts. I got one this morning at 7 a.m. that said
Yeah.
hey, you want a free iPhone? Click this link
Nice.
to get.
Click the link.
And
Did you click the link?
I was
That's
getting,
the
I was
smartest
close.
thing you could do.
I was close to it. But
That's how they get you.
yeah, and then I have a lot of weight ones. What? It's what am I looking up that's talking about my weight? It doesn't make no sense.
Oh, a lot of weight ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're saying hey, lose 60 pounds in the next
Whoa,
40 days, and I'm
that's
like,
so insulting.
I know. That's what
How do they know?
I block all the numbers now, but I still
Right.
keep getting them. But last thing, so you just talked about the mail and getting some spam in the mail.
Right.
So in my address, or at my address, I should say, I'm getting a lot of fast food coupons, whatever you want to say.
They must know. They know.
They must know. And I don't get fast food that much whatsoever anymore. Once in a while I'll divulge.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I'll try to look at it and see if there's decent deals on there or good deals. If it's
Sure.
if it's oh man, it's okay, you get free.
They
thing.
accomplish what they're trying to do.
Right. But then there's some that are oh, you get buy one, get one 10% off. That doesn't do anything for you. It's 40 cents. So
Right.
Wendy's, they sent me a real good one, man. I was thinking about texting it to you.
Yeah, well, what
and
is
then we could share the coupon
I got
codes.
Wendy's yesterday.
Oh, dude, there's some stuff on there. There must have been 10 boxes on that page that said free.
Ooh.
And I just kept looking at it. It said buy one, get one
Nothing
free
lights
with any purchase.
Mike's eyes up.
Ooh,
Wendy's
man.
free.
I put it on my fridge. I'm not going to use it probably, but I put it on the fridge just in case I have that one moment of just.
That's always a good idea. It's always a good idea. Look, we got to get to the show.
Let's go.
We got to
Let's
get to
do
the
it.
show. All right, let's get into the rewind. Let's take a quick look at the past week in DC sports. We recap it in case you missed it. Let's start with the Washington Wizards. 3-1 this week. Monday beat Indiana 154-141. Crazy big scoring line. I won some money betting on that game.
Ooh.
Westbrook with 14 points, 21 boards, 24 assists. Rui with 27 points in the game. Wednesday, lost at Milwaukee, 135-134. This was a game that we kind of figured they'd most likely lose, but they kept it close. Beal with 42 points. It was a 4-point game. Beal hits a 3, makes it a 1-point game. Wizards get the steal, but Garrison Matthews does miss the 3. It was about 50 feet away. Thursday, won at Toronto, 131-129 in OT. Beal with 14 of his points in the fourth and overtime. And then another overtime game 2 days later, Saturday at Indiana, 133-132. Beal with 50 points. And Russell Westbrook ties Oscar Robertson with 181 triple-doubles. He should break the record in the next couple games with a few games left. But 3-1 week for the Washington Wizards. What about the Washington Capitals?
The Washington Capitals went 3-1 as well. I mean, both the Caps and the Wiz right now are just playing fantastic ball and puck, I guess you could say. Monday, they won at New York 6-3. They knocked the Rangers out of the playoff hunt, which I was kind of shocked that the Rangers kind of faltered really late in the season there. I thought they were going to make a nice little run with Boston, but that didn't happen. Daniel Sprong with another goal, which adds to his goal scoring recently with his 6th goal in his last 7 games in Ovi's absence, which is a fantastic run for him. But the win was overshadowed, obviously, as everyone has heard, by the controversy involving our man Tom Wilson and multiple Rangers. Artemi Panarin was in there as well. That's what pretty much led to that whole entire fiasco of a press release from the Rangers organization. That whole entire thing is an S show right now.
We'll touch on that in the Cap segment.
Yeah,
sure.
Seriously. Fast forward a day later, the Caps forward was fined the max $5,000, but not suspended, which we dodged a bullet there. Wednesday, they beat the Rangers 4-2, which the game started not so well with multiple fights and penalties to the point where it really wasn't a game. And Locker and Joe B were on the call saying, "Can we just call a professional game here? Like, what is this?" Pretty much during the second period, they were saying that because it was just fisticuffs pretty much the entire first period. The lone bright spot, though, was TJ Oshie's return to the team after his father's passing. Was Alzheimer's. He was battling that for a while. Osh scored a hat trick in honor of his dad, which was really a good moment to see on TV at least, besides all the fights and all that controversy. Friday, they lost to Philly 4-2. Basically a dud game from the Caps. Nothing really went right for them. Washington led in shots and hits, but the Flyers were playing spoiler and took down the boys in D.C., which pretty much ultimately led to the Pens winning the East Division, which I'll get to in a second. Saturday, they beat Philly 2-1 in overtime. A handful of starters not playing or not starting in this one, as health and availability has started to become a minor concern entering the playoffs, but we'll talk about that as well. Ovechkin still not playing. Samsonov and Kuznetsov still have their issues with the team and the suspension. The Pens clinched the East, like I said, with Washington clinching the second spot with the Pens owning the tiebreaker. And now moving on to the Nationals, as they said before. And you know what? It's just not hasn't been a good stretch of games here recently, Mr. Simpson.
Not the best week at all for the Nationals. 1-5 this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they played Atlanta. First on Tuesday, lost to the Braves 6-1. Huascar and Noah pitched 7 innings, hit a grand slam
Say
for
that
the
5
Braves.
times fast.
Wednesday, you lose to Atlanta again, another grand slam in this game. So this time Marcell Ozuna, who had been hitting pretty poorly this season, but then he hits a grandy in Game 2. And then in the third game of the series, lost to Atlanta again, 3-2. This was the YouTube game on Thursday, where it was broadcasting live on YouTube. That's the only place you could watch the game. Kind of an interesting idea. We'll see. Rough called third strike on Robles to end the 8th inning. That was kind of going around on Twitter as far as, because it was a really bad call. Really low, clearly a ball. Young umpire, terrible call to kill a rally. Friday, the series started with the Yankees, and the Nats started off pretty strong. 11-4. Yankees infield looks terrible. Errors left and right. Josh Harrison hit a 3-run tater. Nats won 11-4. And then this weekend, it all fell apart. 2 close games, an 11-inning heartbreaker, 4-3. Nats lost. Max Scherzer pitched a fantastic game, 14 Ks. Guy was on fire, and the bullpen loses it late. And then Sunday, same thing here as we're recording. This happened today, 3-2. Nats lose. Now, Yankees had gone off to a little lead. Kyle Schwarber hits a 2-run tater to tie the game at 2 apiece. And then in the 9th, Brad Hand, back-to-back nights, just doesn't have it. Davey goes to Brad Hand back-to-back times, especially coming off of a game that he just threw 25-plus pitches, and he gives up a walk-off. And nothing really to report in the Washington football team world. And we'll talk more about the Nats. We'll get into some more of like what's been going on this week when we get to them in the crossover section. Because let's start things off with a couple teams that are right here at the tail end of the season, starting with these guys.
The Washington Wizards.
Washington Wizards, Mike, 32-36, 4 games under 500, 9th in the Eastern Conference. First time we've said that in a while.
Yep.
We've been saying 10th pretty recently, and again, they're playoff looks like it's going to be playoff bound. I don't know if it's official yet, but because there's still 4 games to go. But I mean, this team is it's making things interesting. It's making things interesting here as far as the way the standings look right now. I got it pulled up. So you've got from 7 through 10, you've got the Celtics at the 7, the Hornets at the 8, the Wizards at the 9, the Pacers at the 10. As of right now. And that looks like it's probably going to be that way because the Bulls are in the 11th spot, but they're 3 games back. That would be really hard to make up that ground here this late. And then, Wizards and Pacers, that'll be the interesting thing is will they flip-flop? But
right.
Again, the Wizards heading into the playoffs here soon, but Russell Westbrook on the doorstep of passing Oscar Robinson with the triple-double record. 4 games left. You get Atlanta twice, Cavs and Hornets. What are you looking for from this team for this week? This final week of the season, basically. This team looks playoff bound. I mean, maybe if they lose all 4 games, there's a chance that they don't make it in, but the likelihood of that happening is pretty low. They've been winning games. I mean, back-to-back overtime wins. This is, what would you like to see? Would you like them to maybe split the Atlanta series and beat a Cavs team or beat a Hornets team and go 2-2 this week and get into the playoffs as the 9?
Well, here's the thing: is I told you last week that I wanted them to rest Russ and Beal for the Milwaukee game. Now, that game they pretty much had in hand for the most part until Milwaukee came back late. But the biggest thing was they took down Toronto. Now, they had that game pretty much in hand late in the game. I think they were up by about 9 or 10 with not that much time left, a few minutes left. And then they also had a 6-point lead with 45 seconds left, and they almost let that one slip through their fingers as well. But they ended up coming up with a win. Toronto needed that game. That was pretty much a winner-go-home game for them because now, if you look at them in the standings, they're 4.5 games back of the Pacers, and they're pretty much Dunsky. So that's the biggest thing when you look at it. Is that was a huge game. But then we talked about it last week, and then this Pacers series, how they had 2 games within 5 days pretty much against Indiana, and that was huge because Rui had a huge game. They scored 154 points against Indiana, which was crazy because then Indiana comes back. And I think they beat, I don't know if it was the Grizzlies or I forgot who they beat a few days ago, which I ended up betting against the Pacers because everyone was like, oh, man, they're hurt, they're this, they're that. And that kind of kept them in it as well, so they needed that win. So right now they're battling with Indiana. But I think when it comes down to this week, I'm hoping they can go 3-1. If they can go 3-1, I think Cleveland, that's going to be a win, I think, for how they're playing right now. I don't think Cleveland has a shot. I mean, the last 2 times they played Cleveland, they beat them by almost double digits both times, 119 to 110 the first time, and then 122 to 93 the second time at the end of April. So that one should be good. The Charlotte one's going to be tough. Charlotte has been playing kind of, not really 50-50 ball, but they've been solid for the most part. I mean, they got a lot of good young pieces, but we'll see how that game goes in general. But I'm hoping, like you said, I hope they go 3-1. They split the Atlanta series, but you never know about the Atlanta series because Atlanta, they lost a game not too long ago as well. Actually, I think it might have been Atlanta and Indiana this past week because I knew I bet on the game, but I forgot who Indiana played.
Right.
But Trae Young and Clint Capella, they're just leading the charge for Atlanta. So I'm hoping that because they are in. Let me see what position they're in. They're in the 5th spot.
They're in
right
the
now.
5th spot.
So they're not really fighting against Boston right now with not that many games left, obviously, to get into that play-in matchup kind of situation. But right now, I think that they're now that they at least have Trae Young back from injury, now it's going to be a good thing for them. But I think that if we split 3-1, I'll be happy with that. I think we definitely should beat Cleveland and Charlotte. Charlotte is almost a must-win. But at the same time, hoping 3-1, and we can possibly maybe even sneak in to that 8th spot because that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that would be the interesting thing, and the Charlotte game could be a preview of who they may face in the playoffs. Because the way the play-in tournament works, for those at home who don't know how that works, so the 7 through the 10 are in the play-in tournament. The 7 plays the 8, which right now would be Boston playing Charlotte. The winner of that gets the 7 seed. So the winner of that basically is the team that plays Brooklyn in the playoffs. The loser of that game plays the winner of the 9 and the 10 seed. So the Wizards and the Pacers would have to play each other in a 1-game playoff. Hopefully the Wizards would win, and then they would play the loser of the 7 and 8. And then if they win again, the winner of that matchup ends up basically gets the 8th seed and has to play Philly. So, I think if you're the Wizards, because you look at also, and look, I mean, obviously playing against the 1 or the 2, playing against Philly or Brooklyn, it's going to be tough regardless. If the Wizards are able to make it out of the play-in tournament and play one of those teams, it's going to be tough. But I'll tell you this. I like the Wizards matchup with Philly more than I like the Wizards matchup with the Nets. And I think that, I think they would lose either way. Let's be honest. I mean,
True.
But I just think that I like Russ versus Simmons better than Russ versus Kyrie. Anytime you've got a team like the Nets that have such superstars as well. That's when they kind of really playoff time is when the superstars really come out, and that would worry me a little bit just because they are so loaded. But I think the Wizards have a chance here. There is a path to get out of the play-in tournament, and I don't really know which path I would prefer. I mean, like you said, if they are able to get up to the 8, then you play Boston.
Right.
Boston and the Wizards always match up kind of tough because Boston is a really defensive team.
Yep.
They have a history. That might be tough. I think the Wizards can smoke the Pacers, just like they did the other night. I think they can smoke the Pacers. So I wouldn't even mind the Wizards to be in the position where they are right now at the 9, and then you beat Indiana, and then you face hopefully Charlotte can beat Boston because I think the Wizards can beat Charlotte. So, something like that. But it's all a little bit in flux, and it really does depend on how these 4 games go.
Yeah, I'm actually going to differ a little bit. I think they would play better against the Nets, mainly because of the sole fact that I think the Sixers have a better defensive team. I think Embiid down low is better than anyone the Nets really have down low to play defender. And also the offensive presence of the Sixers as well with Embiid, who's going to probably go out there. And I'll eat some humble pie. I said Embiid was I didn't say he was a bust. I thought he was overrated, but this year he's just smoking everybody. So I will give him that. I'll give him the props for that. But the Nets, obviously, you got KD, you got Kyrie. Whenever Harden comes back, or whenever the heck that's going to be. But I just think that when it comes down to it, I just think the Nets aren't as good defensively as the Sixers are. I mean, Kyrie.
Well, sure, yeah, no,
yeah.
The Sixers are one of the better defensive teams in the league,
and that's the thing for me is that if I'm going to bet on possibly going into an offensive game where the Wizards can possibly score 125, 140 somewhere in the middle there, I'm going to try to bet them to go against the Nets and hopefully outscore them. And it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be a winner. Let's put it that way, just like you said. But at the same time, I'd rather have an offensive battle between 2 teams. And honestly, if you're looking at the Nets, I mean, for the playoffs, the top 10 teams, the Nets are 3rd worst in opponents' points per game. You got the Wizards, obviously, are the top worst, and then you have the Pacers. But the Pacers, I think the Pacers are a little bit better than they are. But I think the Pacers just had a lot of injuries and different things of that nature, so that really hurt their points per game for the opponents. But at the same time, you're looking at it, and I just think that when it comes down to it, I'd rather play a team that's 99 out of 100 times is going to lead on their offense over their defense over a team that's, pretty decently sound when it comes to offense, but lean on their defense to propel them throughout every single game.
Right, and I think it's a fair point. I think my point is I don't want to get into a shooting match with the Nets.
True.
With having James Harden, having Kevin Durant, and having Kyrie Irving. I think they're going to win that. Because you're right, but Wizards suck defensively. The Nets suck defensively. So it's 2 very bad defensive teams. But if it is a shootout, I think it's going to be rough. It's kind of pick your poison, right? Because, like you said, the Sixers, they're actually a top 5 defensive team. They're one of the better defensive teams in the league. So you either have to deal with the Sixers defense or you have to deal with the superstars in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. So you're either the 7 or you're the 8. You're going to get smoked either way. Yeah. But hey, let's just get in. Let's just get into the playoffs.
Let's get in.
Let's
survive in advance, man. Survive in advance.
Exactly. Let's watch some playoff basketball. A team that is not going to get smoked, hopefully, and a team that's going to actually have a pretty high seed.
The Washington Capitals.
The Washington Capitals, 35-15-5, 75 points, second in the East right now. They've clinched that second spot beneath Pittsburgh. Mike, 1 game left in the regular season. Boston on Tuesday. The Bruins game, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Mm-hmm. Interesting week. I mean, it was kind of the reason why we have a New York theme in the title of this episode is because you had the Nats deal with the Yankees this week, and then you had the Caps and the Rangers drama this week. So it's been kind of a D.C. New York week, and it all started with the Tom Wilson stuff earlier in the week. And I'll tell you, watching the game, the second game, the brawl game, I mean, while it was obviously not the best hockey, that it wasn't even hockey at all, really, at that point. At the same time, there were a lot of eyeballs on the sport and on that game. The Twitter clips were going everywhere. I know I was sending clips to friends and family. I mean, I knew that I had to watch the game that night.
Oh, yeah.
Because I knew that something like this could happen. And when the face-off happened and then immediately everybody's fighting, and it was like, oh, this is on. Now, when you get to the 6th fight of the night, obviously it's like, all right, we're kind of over.
What are we doing? What are we doing here?
I think it is the interesting thing that does separate hockey from the other sports is the fact that guys can fight. And I know it sounds so like caveman, like, just kind of, I don't know, lowbrow or whatever. But, I mean, giving the guys a chance to fight makes that sport more interesting versus the baseball, throw the balls at the batter because they flipped a bat or things like that, or in the other sports. I mean, football is basically one long fight the whole game, but it's a little bit different. And then in basketball, obviously, there's the occasional shoving match. But the interesting thing about hockey is if a team is pissed off at another team or a guy does something dirty or cheap shot or whatever, I mean, you're going to see a fight the next game, and they're going to have it out, and then they're going to move on. Now, the Rangers had a hard time moving on, though, Mike.
Yeah.
They really had a hard time moving on.
Well, also because of the sole fact that we knocked them out of the playoff run, even though they didn't really have too much of a shot after losing to the Islanders like the week prior or whatever, a couple games. So that was the biggest thing, I think, that kind of like they were already like, oh, we're out of it. Why are we fighting with them? I mean, they don't like us. We don't like them. It's the same thing with almost every
There's
single
some history there.
Especially the sole fact that you look at, you look at this division. This is mostly all of our rivals. When you look at the Tampa Bays, you look at who else am I thinking of? Florida and Carolina and stuff like that. We don't really care about them when it comes to competition here in the East Coast. We don't care about them because they're far away and stuff like that. Pittsburgh's only pretty much less than 4 hours, depending on how fast you drive. Boston's not too far away. The New York Islanders and the Rangers, they're real close. Philly, the same thing. New Jersey, they're all close. I mean, Buffalo, I have no idea where Buffalo even is. But at the same time,
it's in Buffalo.
It's in New York. It's in New York. It's somewhere in New York. I think it's whatever. Go Bills. So basically, when you look at it, I just think it's kind of funny that they just had to keep fighting. Now I understand you have bad blood, but even they were trying to go after TJ Oshie. Like it was his first game. He wasn't even playing in the game that they had that whole entire scrum. So why are you? I don't know. I just think that it
started
getting
stupid. It started not making sense.
Yeah,
at a certain point.
I just think it kind of got out of line to the point where you're just like, all right, guys, we can fight. Okay, you fight, whatever. You get Tom Wilson a couple times or whatever it may be, and then there's going to like when Joby and Locker say on the broadcast like, can we just call a hockey game here? Like, I mean, it's like, oh, they're dropping the gloves again. Here we go. It's like whatever.
Right, and that's the stupid thing. It's like, yes, okay, the Tom Wilson play, definitely not one of his worst. In fact, he actually got kind of screwed in that play because he actually had a guy on his back too.
Yeah.
But so it definitely wasn't one of the worst Tom Wilson incidents we've seen over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And you go after him, you fight him, you move on. If you're and then the statement put out by the Rangers, who then later fired their GM, I believe, and so it was a wild week for New York sports in general, and that just added to the chaos. But I did want to ask, so there was a little injury news here, especially the last couple games, and especially the last game. Are you worried? Are you worried about this latest rash of injury bugs heading into the playoffs?
So for Mother's Day today, I went over to my aunt's, obviously, and my cousin is a huge Caps fan. Like, I mean, watches and all the blogs and different things of that nature and stuff like that. And we were talking today briefly about it. And I first of all told him that I think the Caps were just like kind of fibbing with Tom Wilson's injury or whatever. Like quote unquote injury. Like they said, oh, he had an upper body injury. Then some people were saying, oh, he hurt his hand or something like that. It's like, I don't think he had an injury because he was playing like the next night.
Sure.
Okay, if he really had that big of an injury, then he wouldn't be playing any other game until the playoffs. I just think they were trying to keep him out as a precautionary reason because it looked like the Rangers weren't going to stop fighting, even though, which is also funny, they kept losing all the fights. Or not, I shouldn't say, maybe not all of them, maybe like 90% of them, but it's like, let's be honest.
Yeah. Most of them, I'd say, went the Caps' way.
Well, the Caps, they've been saying it on the radio that literally the Caps have like 4 or 5 guys that are over 6'4". I mean, you got Anthony Manthan now, Zdeno Chara, Brendan Dillon, Tom Will. I mean, it's like, Rangers,
you don't want to fight these guys.
You don't want to fight these guys. Let's be honest here.
No.
And that's why I thought it was kind of funny that the Caps had the 4th line out there to start because they knew something was going to happen. And Carl Hagelin's out there fighting. And Carl Hagelin's like 5'8". It's like I just thought it was funny. But and I might be off with that height. But anyways, I thought it was kind of hilarious. But Yeah, I just think they kind of faked the Tom Wilson injury to say, hey man, just cool your jets, man. You got in the fight in. We played you for a second. Just go sit down.
Yeah, you need him in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So you need him to have a cool head. Don't do anything stupid for the rest of the regular season.
Right.
And just be there ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that also with the Ovi deal, they said he re-aggravated his injury the other day. I forgot which game it was exactly, where he only played like 30 seconds, and they said that he wasn't really feeling too good. And my cousin also, and I'm not saying my cousin's like this like insider or anything like that, but he reads a lot of like I said, blogs, and also looks at a lot of the beat reporters and all that kind of stuff that are inside the locker rooms and whatnot. And he said that he really thinks that it's just a precautionary reason, in his own opinion, for Ovi. Because of the sole fact that they don't want him to go out there and re-aggravate the injury when he could sit out for another week or so. And yeah, he might be, rusty a little bit, but it's Alexander Ovechkin. Let's be honest here. And he also, by the way, not to get into it too much, but obviously the Seattle Kraken, they were talking about them, and this is a little bit later topic, but he also gave me some insight of how the Caps can possibly weasel their way out of letting TJ Oshie possibly get picked up. Because, and I'll mention this to you real quick.
In the expansion draft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they obviously had the expansion draft where, a lot of the players can be, in danger of getting picked, like Nate Schmidt did with the Vegas Knights. And so basically, if they protect Oshie, Ovechkin is in danger of getting picked. But he said that Ovechkin is a free agent, and for next season, and that would give them 2 months, 2 months really right there. I'm doing it in quotations. People obviously can't see me unless you're watching the YouTube channel. But 2 months to re-sign Ovechkin. But the Caps could say under the table, say, hey, we're going to pay you this for next season. So just let you know that if you get taken, you got 2 months to not sign a deal with them, and you can just come right back to us, and we don't lose anything. So
right. I'm sure there's rules against this. I'm sure
there might
your cousin probably doesn't know that there's got to be some tampering rules.
There might be, but hey.
My guess is the league has thought about the same thing your cousin has thought about.
Probably.
But you're right. But hey, look, if not, then it's a genius idea. I'm not knocking the idea.
It's a topic for another day, but I think right now the injuries, like you said, I don't think they're going to be too much of an issue. I think the biggest issue is the Kuznetsov deal with Laviolette, because that whole entire suspension, this team suspension thing, where he doesn't think he's responsible enough and taking accountability for being late to meetings and doing this and doing that and not acting as like a starting center for the Washington Capitals. That's going to be a big of an issue, because the fact that you need Evgeny Kuznetsov. And also, I keep mentioning my cousin. He actually made a really good comparison to Alexander Semin. Him and Kuznetsov are kind of the same way, where they play when they want to play. They don't play for when the team is counting on them to be there or be late to the meeting or early to the meeting or whatever. Because now Samsonov, which is not a good sign, is that you're looking at it now, and now he's kind of not following the rules and stuff like that. But I think another topic that we can get into right now, real quick, is the goalie situation.
Sure.
Who is going to play goalie? Vanacek is probably going to lead. I think he's going to probably get in there and lead the team in the playoffs. But because of obviously Samsonov's little issues here lately. But that's the thing, is that I think whoever starts the Boston game is going to be the starter for the playoffs.
I think you have to. It's got to be that way, because you got to get somebody a little bit of momentum.
Yeah.
Heading into the play. But the interesting thing with the playoffs this year, though, is there probably is going to be a little break. I don't know when the schedule is supposed to kind of shake out for the first round or whatever, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a break. So, being and my point there is just that having a hot goaltender is not going to be it's going to be a little different, because you're going to have like a week off possibly.
Yeah, and you also have the seeding situation too, which right now the Bruins have a game tomorrow against the Islanders and then Tuesday against us. And right now, they have to gain at least 1 point, because I think they have the tiebreaker over the Islanders. I'm not exactly sure about that. They have one less game played. I think the Islanders play their last game, I believe, tomorrow against Boston, and we play our last game against Boston on Tuesday, and then all of us, including the Penguins, will have the same number of games played. But I was talking about who do we want to play, the Bruins or the Islanders. Now, there's some speculation out there saying like, oh, we own Boston in the playoffs. I don't like to look at the past, because you saw who they got. They got Taylor Hall at the trade deadline, that's a different team. It's a different team than who we owned last time. And then the Islanders, do you want to play Barry Trotz in the playoffs? Who knows? But it's like I'd rather play the Islanders because we've dominated them.
I mean, that's the thing. It's been dominating.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you got to pick the Islanders.
Yeah, and Boston has us all season pretty much so far.
Yeah, no, I think Islanders have got to be. If you're a Caps fan, I feel like you got to want that series because I think just like you said, just the fact that the Caps have been absolutely destroying the Islanders in recent history, and you got to go off the recent history. I think that's got to be what you think of.
And they both got two good goalies. I mean, Varlamov for the Islanders and Tuukka Rask for the Bruins. And, I mean, when you look at those two goalies, it's like either of them can stand on their head and, basically save everything. So I think if you flip a coin, we're hoping that the Islanders win in regulation tomorrow, and then we beat them in regulation on Tuesday. That's just my theory. So I'm going to be watching both games the next two nights and might even throw a little skin on them just to make it more interesting.
I think the playoffs are going to be next weekend because there's still regular season games that have to happen for some teams that are way behind, and like Vancouver and Calgary and things like that. So I think there's going to be a lot of games throughout the week, and then I think it's going to be next weekend. So, by the way, for those who are Caps fans that listen to the show, stay tuned for some Caps coverage by this show and others on The Contender. Again, that's thecontender.com, Contender with a K, and follow them on Twitter as well. Because I think there's going to be some post-game, pre-game, a lot of different stuff. We may even do a live version of this podcast on the air as well, so we'll keep an eye on that. I want to quickly touch on
the Washington Nationals.
Perfect timing, by the way.
Yes, there we go. Not a whole lot to talk about with the Nats. I mean, bad week. We talked about it earlier when we were recapping the week. Another note on that is just, again, the continuing frustration of Josh Bell, who, the interesting thing with Josh Bell is they announced it, I think, recently that he's now like the team ambassador for fan ambassador type stuff, I guess. Now he's got the book club going on. Like the Nationals are really trying to make Josh Bell like a face of the team right now in a lot of different ways because, I mean, all signs are pointing to he is a good guy. Like he's likely a good guy, a good person.
Right.
But the fact is you brought in, this was the gamble that the Nats took, bringing in a guy like Josh Bell, bringing in a guy like Kyle Schwarber, where there was a chance that they weren't going to be able to hit. But if they did, great. You sign them to just a couple-year deal. If they pan out, awesome. If not, it's not the biggest worry in the world. But at the same time, you don't really know what to do with a guy like that because do you send him down to the minors? There's really not a lot in the minors that you can, talent-wise, to bring up and kind of take his place. You really kind of needed him to hit. I mean, a switch-hitting power hitter at first base with an aging Ryan Zimmerman there, he kind of was an ideal signing for the Nats, and it really hasn't panned out. And right now, Mike, I think he was, 135 or something like that, batting average-wise, I think last time I checked. So this is not good. I mean, the Josh Bell supporters are in trouble right now. He's batting, 141 because he did get a hit today.
Ooh.
So 141. So still sub 150.
Did you see anybody on Twitter start going crazy over that?
I mean, there were some people. I mean, that's the thing is people are rooting for the guy, and I don't want to root against him. Right. But at the same time, 141, Mike, this is a guy that's supposed to be protecting guys like Juan Soto in this lineup, and he's just lost. I mean, 2 strikeouts again today. He struck out probably I think a third of his at bats. He strikes out, so it's not good. It's not fun as a fan to see a guy in your 5 or 6 spot just not hit the baseball.
Right, and that's a big thing is that when you're looking at comparative stats to other Nats players, Josh Harrison, who is basically signed as a utility guy, like a Steve Lombardozzi or a Wilmer Difo, he's supposed to be that kind of guy in our lineup. He has about 8 more at bats. He's batting 150 points higher in average. Yeah. He also has 170 points of on-base percentage more. I mean, and Josh Harrison is not a bad bat. I mean, he can go out there, and 291 is probably not his career average. I mean, that's probably a little high for him, but a 270 is pretty solid for him, I would say. And that's why he's been bounced around with teams because he knows how to hit the ball. And he also can play almost every single position on the field. Trust me, I play with him in the show all the time, and he's on every single – I mean, he's
a utility guy. I mean, the Nats have used him in left field before. They've used him – now, he does – get some errors here and there. Like I know at second base he got a couple errors, but no, you're right. That has been a great pickup. He was good last year in the COVID season. He's been good here this year. I mean, that's that's a guy who much lower kind of risk, high reward type guy,
Right.
versus what you do with Josh Bell.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is he has 86 at bats, 11 strikeouts. Okay, that's a pretty good percentage. It's not too bad. But when you're talking about, Josh Bell go out there and have 26 Ks and 78 at bats, I mean, that's a lot. It's like you have to go hit at least something. I mean, the problem is, and like you said, I'm rooting for the guy because I thought it was a good signing, and I thought the Kyle Schwarber thing was a good signing as well. I was hoping that they would actually be doing something more positive than what they're doing right now. Schwarber at 193, his on-base percentage is pretty horrific at 261 still. But at the same time, you're looking at these two guys, and you're hoping, because it's a long season, that they can possibly have a hot month and then keep that momentum going and then get back to their norm. But right now, like you said, not having Juan Soto for the longest time, we treaded water, and we somehow, some way, we're like a half game out of first place or whatever it was. And now with those losses lately, we're back down to 3.5 games back of the Mets. But the biggest thing about this is that these teams in the NL East are just beating up on each other. So, yeah, having Schwarber and Bell not being, I guess you could say, like I said, the norm of themselves, it's not going to hurt us too much, because of the sole fact that, hey, everyone in this division is beating up on each other. And actually, you look at it, 4 of the 5 teams have a negative run differential. So that's also a big thing as well. The Marlins somehow have a plus 20, which is crazy. But you're looking at it and just saying, most of these teams are just right now mediocre. The Braves last 10, 5-5, Nats 5-5, Marlins 5-5. Philly 6-4. I mean, you're looking at all these teams are just, you win some, you lose some, you win some, you lose some. So they're going back and forth. So right now, yes, they're struggling, but I'm just hoping that at some point they get hot, and then we can string together 4 or 5 series in a row, and not win every single game, but win those 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, stuff like that, and kind of push forward.
And the thing is NL East was thought of as a really, really strong division heading into this season.
True.
And still could be. But right now, it's not necessarily going that way. We would be remiss without touching briefly on the news about FP Santangelo. Obviously, there's still details to come out. We're not going to get into, all right, did he do this or did he do that? Because we don't know. We don't have any evidence of that. But all we can read is some of the statements and things like that. And this was a statement made by Masson here. This was the national statement on FP Santangelo. This was reported yesterday. Late last week, we were made aware of allegations of conduct by FP Santangelo that are inconsistent with our values as an organization. We alerted Masson and revoked our approval of him as a member of our broadcast team. Masson assured us that they would investigate these allegations thoroughly. After Masson notified us that their investigation was complete and that FP should be reinstated, additional posts appeared. Once again, we notified Masson and revoked our approval of FP as a member of our broadcast team indefinitely. Moving forward, we will refer all questions regarding this investigation to FP's employer, Masson. But actually, the way it works with former players is actually MLB is the one who's responsible for FP Santangelo at this time, as far as like things like questions and lawyer stuff. So it's just been a weird thing from a fan perspective. We're not going to get into the legal side of things because we're 2 idiots. But from a fan perspective, it was very strange. And you and I had been texting about it because it was a situation where Bob Carpenter, the Nats play-by-play guy, he was a planned absence. I think he was, doing some family stuff. He was going to be gone.
Right.
So it was going to be Dan Coco doing play-by-play and FP Santangelo doing color in Toronto. Next thing you know, and I believe they did maybe do one game together or something like that at first, but regardless, next thing you know, you've got Justin Maxwell, former Washington National player, doing color, which was rough. And I don't want to rag on the guy too much, but the big part is, and you and I know this because we've broadcasted with people that are doing it for their first time, and you've got some folks that are able to kind of ease into it fine and kind of be natural. And then you got people that have a really hard time. Yeah. Justin Maxwell had a really hard time, Mike. Yeah. I mean, the guy was whispering the whole broadcast. It did not sound good.
Well, yeah, when I checked in on it, I was like, man, I don't know what's going on here. This is like a morgue or something like that. It's like,
it was really bad because
like a library.
Because his energy made Dan Coco's energy kind of go down too.
Yeah.
So they were both very quiet, and it just didn't sound good. Then you get Grant Paulson in. You and I both like Grant Paulson. He's kind of a polarizing figure, I guess, because a lot of people on Twitter don't like Grant Paulson,
Right.
which is weird because I think he's a nice guy. I mean, I think he does a good job on the Fan, but he knows his stuff. He follows the sport. He does stuff with MLB radio and stuff like that. So he was doing color commentary with Dan Kolko for a bit, and then FP came back for a game.
That was weird.
And then he disappeared again. So the fans have been going nuts all week trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Today and for the foreseeable future, it looks like it's going to be Bob Carpenter doing play-by-play and now Dan Kolko doing color, which he's more suited for versus play-by-play.
True.
But it's a very weird situation. A lot of accusations going out there. Again, Mike and I are two idiots. We're not here. We're not going to go through the DMs that have been floating around on Twitter and stuff like that and talk about that because we don't know. We don't know. We weren't there. We don't know the full details of the case.
Yeah.
We'll figure it all out. I'm sure it'll all come
I know.
out,
I
but-
definitely was not there.
Right. But our big thing is the thing is you and I both are not big fans of FPC and Tangelo
Right.
from a purely broadcast standpoint.
Yeah.
We feel like the Nats and Masson need a revamp regardless of whatever happens. Or obviously, we'd hate to see it happen this way because of if there are victims of whatever he may have done. Obviously, our heart goes out to them.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's I'd rather see him and Bob be removed from their positions because of being bad broadcasters,
Right.
than any sort of bad situation like this. But I think in general, Masson just needs an overhaul, man. I think if FFP ends up getting fired, which who knows, we're not saying he is, but who knows what's going to happen. I think that the Nats they can ride out the rest of this season with Bob and Kolko, and then I think they got to just clean house, man. I think they clean house. They revamp the network entirely. You bring in a new play-by-play guy. You bring in a guy like Mark DeRosa or something like that to do color commentary, and you start over. Rebrand Masson, all that's good stuff. Because Mike Masson, as you and I say it all the time, looks like it's the '80s
Right.
when you look at the graphics and stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep my opinion short and sweet here. I mean, I just think that when we talk about it time and time again, I mean, I would love, which I don't think it's going to happen for Dave and geez, now I'm going to go mind blank.
Charlie?
Yeah, I knew it started with a C.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to the radio in so long. I keep forgetting things and going mind blank. But yeah, I mean, if Dave and Charlie would actually like to go to TV, that'd be perfect.
Oh, sure. I'd be totally happy with
Because number one, they are perfect. Now we know the difference between radio and TV. In radio, you have to paint the picture because everyone's listening. They're wondering what's happening, and they are perfect at it. They are great, especially when they alternate, when they go 3 innings, 3 innings, 3 innings, or whatever. But when it comes down to TV, you're watching it, so you're just talking about the game. And we're not, like you said, we're not big fans of Bob and FP. But just like you mentioned, if there's victims, something like that, this is not the way we wanted them to quote unquote go out. But just their whole entire broadcast is just blah. It's like at least when you have O's games, you got Jim Palmer and his soothing voice. You can fall asleep to Jim Palmer's voice. If you wanted to have it on like an app or something like that, he could sit there and read you a story and you fall asleep because his voice is so soothing. It's so nice. It's like he knows baseball too. He's not a Justin Maxwell. Sorry, Justin, but I mean at the same time, Jim Palmer. And by the way, he's the last guy before John Means to throw a no-hitter for the O's, no-hitter complete game. I heard that on the radio. So just to throw that out there. But I don't know. I just think that, when you look at the rankings and how Masson, with the Nats at least, have been so low in the bottom 3 for the last 5 years, and the O's have been in the top 5 for the last decade, it's hard to watch sometimes. And that's the thing is, it's hard to, I love watching the Nats, but it's just hard to watch because it's just so oh, well, you don't know baseball. We always say the same old things, but it's at the same time, a whole revamp, I think this is honestly the ticket to do it. I don't think they're going to get rid of Bob Carpenter because more so it's on the FP side with this controversy, but also with the fan disconnect with the broadcast team in general because Bob Carpenter's been there for the entire time. I mean, I was more of a Rob Dibble guy, but I didn't like him kind of ragging on Strasburg every other day. But at the same time, he told it how it is. He's like, oh, when I was playing this, did this. I mean, he was always the guy that was like, bring the hammer down on somebody.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's like I just like guys that know baseball, but don't look at a fan on on the other side of the screen, on the other side of the TV, and saying like, you don't know baseball if you think about this. That's what I hate about it.
Right. And so, we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, I definitely I'm with you. I think there should be some sort of reevaluation of Masson or I mean, we've already talked about it for years that this team needs to move away from Masson entirely. Maybe get into an NBC Sports situation and have a network that way. So we'll keep an eye on it. But for now, FP is there. There's been no other news come out as far as is he officially let go or anything like that. It seems like there's just an investigation happening right now. He's currently off the air still, so we'll see there. Let's get into a little forecast on what's on the schedule this week for our teams, starting with the Wizards. You got Atlanta on Monday, as we talked about, Atlanta Wednesday, Cleveland Friday, Charlotte Sunday. And then that's the end of the regular season for the Washington Wizards. 4 games throughout the week. Keep an eye on these Wizards, see how they do. Mike, pretty simple. Boston for the Caps on Tuesday, not a lot to report there. And then the Nats, 3 games at home against Philly starting on Tuesday. And then you got the Arizona, the D-backs. This is like the 3rd time this team's played the D-backs, I feel like.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
For the weekend series, they're going to be in Arizona this time. So those are going to be some late games, I believe, if they're going to be West Coast time.
Right. Maybe 9 o'clock games, maybe.
Yeah, and you know me. That's way past my bedtime. Let's get into the final lap here. A chance for me to bring up some big stories in sports. Hear Mike's thoughts on it. Here we go. Starting with the Derby. Kentucky Derby champ disqualified. Mike, did you see this?
I did see the news today. I was driving, so I didn't get to look more into it, but I'm going to go on there and check it out a little bit later.
Okay, we'll hear your thoughts on Twitter. DK Metcalf finishes 9th in race against professional sprinters.
Got long legs.
Okay. Former NFL defensive end Brendan Baer saved a man from a flaming semi-truck minutes after it had been struck by a train. He saved the man's life, Mike.
He should be on the show Heroes, even though it's not.
Do you remember Brandon Baer?
No idea who he is.
Yeah, never heard of him.
Did he play for the Bears?
That would be good. Lions cut running back Kerryon Johnson, and now the Eagles have claimed him and added him to their running back squad. They've got 2 or 3 pretty solid backs now, Mike.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is their leading back, so we'll have to see what happens with him, but he's more of an injury-prone type of guy, so Kerryon might get some kick return options. We'll see.
Jacob deGrom exited the Mets game today. Possible injury. They're trying to figure it out, but he did leave early. Sucks for the Mets fans. Pretty good for the rest of the NL East.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about that one.
And last but not least, the segment that the people love. They clamor for it every single week. Would Mike give up fast food and alcohol for a year? Here's the scenario, Mike. It is a golden ticket in Major League Baseball. And the golden ticket means you can attend any game in any city for a season. Now, here's some other stipulations.
Okay.
I didn't want to put all the details.
Give it to me. Here we go.
So your seats they're not like every game is behind home plate or anything like that.
Okay.
But they're good seats. Let's say 200s. You got a good view from behind home plate. You're not like directly behind home plate, but you're in the 200s, so you're like that first section back. But you have the whole the section to yourself and stuff like that, especially with the pods. They're doing in the game, so it's not like you've got people all top on you.
Okay.
So it's free. You can go to any game in any city for a whole season. So Mike, you plan a little trip out to California. You can go see any games over there. Keep in mind, the games are free. You also, and this is the key part for you, all inclusive for ballpark food and drinks. Now, drinks, I'm going to have to limit you to sodas. I don't think they're going to be giving you free beers all night.
Yeah.
But we'll say you can have sodas, water, whatever, that non-alcoholic drinks, we'll say. But ballpark food, whatever the stadium's got, you can have. So free food and drinks while you're there. You get a seat at any game that you want all season long. That's the scenario.
So it's just one game?
No. For a whole season, you can show up
at
to
any
game.
Okay.
Any game for any team in the country for the MLB, for
Okay.
Major League Baseball. So it's a golden ticket. This is what I think this is actually a thing. They give to players who have been in the league, I think, for 10 years or something like that. They get this where they can show up to any game at any time. But I don't know about the food and drink stuff. But
Right.
So you get a golden ticket for a season. So, it could be, I guess, starting next season, the 2022 season. You can go to any game in the country for free with food and drink all included.
Man, so and my seat preference isn't completely, where I want to be.
Well, it's a good seat. It's a good seat.
So it's
But
a
I can't
predetermined
give you-
seat. So it's like an airplane.
Yeah. It's like you'll have like it'll be about the same type of seat in every stadium, basically.
Okay.
But it's a good seat. It's home plate view. It's just one section back in the 200s, front row of the 200s. And if you want it on the end, you can get it on the end. If you want it in the middle, we can get into those details.
Ooh,
But
the middle.
you can
Yeah.
show up. So like again, you show up in New York for a weekend. You're going to Yankees games as much as you want.
Yeah.
As many of those Yankees games, you hop over to Queens. You go see a game at Citi Field. You stroll right in to the stadiums.
Right.
You just flash the little ticket. You're in. You flash the ticket to the
man.
food vendors. You free food.
Hmm.
For a full MLB season. 6 months.
I will tell you right now, this is the best one yet.
Okay.
It's the best one yet.
Okay. It's excluding postseason, though. They're not going to let you into the World Series with this. It's just regular season. Which is still, I mean, it's 162 games times 30 teams. You
Yeah.
can go. There's a lot of options.
A lot of options there. One thing I will say is that one of my dreams is to visit every MLB park, number one.
Sure.
And also every arena, like every hockey arena or something of that nature.
Right.
Man, this is tough. I'm gonna have to lean no. Oh
Oh
man.
my God.
Because dude, man, it's a lot of giving up for the golden tickets. Because think about it though, when I want to have a nice cold draft, when I'm at the game, I can't drink Coke Zero every time.
Okay, so the difference is if they let you have free beer, you would do it. Is that what you're saying?
It might be the kicker
well,
there.
that wasn't the scenario.
Hey,
Non-alcoholic
that was
drinks.
very close though. That was I
right.
mean, I was teetering. I was like the cliffhanger game from Price is Right.
I thought I
man.
had you.
Yeah.
Well, we were close. We'll try again next week. Let's move on to the segment now where Mike, the trivia master.
Do we call this a segment or any type of thing?
It's like an unofficial segment. It's
Okay.
The question.
Yeah, it's not that long.
That's the name of the segment. We'll call it the question.
Oh, the question. Okay, not bad. Nice and simple. All right, so Mr. Simpson, in our game of You Gotta Know Washington Sports Trivia, who set the Washington single-season record with 113 receptions in 2013? So about 8 years ago. For the then Washington Redskins, who set the single-season record with 113 catches in 2013?
All right, I'm trying to let you know where my brain's going. By the way, hands are up. I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
looking at
His
anything.
hands are up,
It's
guys.
in my-
His hands
it's
are
in my
up.
head.
I saw the wedding ring.
I'll tell you where my brain's going. Immediately, my brain went Santana Moss.
Okay.
That's where my brain immediately went. 2013.
If you need a hint, I'll give you a hint. Maybe on what you just said, I'll give you a hint on.
Okay.
But maybe not.
So is your hint? It's not Santana Moss.
No, my hint is think later.
Okay, later.
Santana's biggest years were back in the late 2000s.
Right. Okay. Deshaun Jackson played for the Redskins, right? Didn't
He
I feel
did.
like
He
I've
did.
seen it?
He did.
Okay.
Think about injuries though.
Yeah, that's true.
You can get this. You can get this.
I know I can. Okay, but this is what happens: is your brain just goes to weird places and
Yeah.
you can't remember. Was it like God? Who was?
Possession receiver, not really a high flyer.
Okay, so it was a receiver. was it an older receiver, like a vet?
Kind of.
Because I'm thinking of Pierre Garcon.
I don't know. Is it?
Is it Pierre Garcon?
Is that your answer?
That's my answer.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Ooh.
I got that right too. I was like, I'm thinking Pierre
Okay.
Garcon, and I was like, oh, Garcon. Garcon is the answer. There you
All
go.
right.
Give a
Wow,
give a couple more coins for that. That was
It
good.
took a while. It took a while to get there, but you guided me there. All right.
I guided you there.
That was a good question. These are both really solid questions so far
Yeah.
because they make you think a bit. There's some options to think about, and if you're I'm not a diehard
Right.
Redskins fan or Washington football team fan, so
Well, there
right.
are things on here like this one you would get in a heartbeat. There are wizards and different things of that nature on there. Like in 2003, what former Knicks and Bucks GM began his lengthy stint as president of basketball operations for the Wizards?
Our boy.
Yeah.
Our boy Ernie.
Yeah, Ernie's last laugh in the
Ernie Steele.
Yeah. Ernie Steele.
Well, throw me a non-football question one day, okay?
Yeah, I will. I just
It can be a hard one. Find like a very difficult basketball or baseball one.
Well, here's one about the Bullets, but
Nah, I'm not going to know that.
91, 92.
Wes Unseld.
I was born in 91.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's go to the money line. Cha-ching. Mike and I had so I've made up some ground, Mike, because you went 0-2. Is that right?
No, I went 1-1. I've just been splitting every single week now.
All right, so you went 1-1. I went 1-1. Also, I got my upset pick right. So I'm 4-8 now.
Are you 4-6?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Because that's 12. We've only done 10 so far.
Okay.
I'm trying to give you props here, man. 4-8.
4-6.
4-8 doesn't look as good as 4-6.
All right, I'm 4-6. You're 5-5.
Yeah, it's not good.
So I'm only one back.
It's not good.
So
man.
I'm looking all right here. All right, my lock of the week. I've been betting against the Tigers every single time they play because they've been losing nonstop. So I'm going to keep with that. Royals over Tigers on Tuesday. I don't even know the pitching matchups. I'm just telling you the Royals are going to win. And then my upset. I was looking at the sketch. I like Pacers over Bucks on Thursday.
I like that. I
think Milwaukee, they've already clinched the playoffs. I think they're going to rest some guys here towards the end of the season. They already know that they're probably not going to get a 1 or 2 seed. So I'm going to say Pacers are going to take down the Bucks on Thursday.
Yeah, I do like that pick. I was actually going to go with something of that nature as well because I think the Pacers, they're going to try to fight with the Wizards, obviously, with losing back-to-back against the Wizards.
They're going to try to win some of these games.
Yeah, so especially with the Bucks, that's good analogy there because of the sole fact that, like you said, the Bucks probably just going to rest some guys and maybe rest one of the Antetokounmpos or whatever,
right?
Whichever one it is.
That's a good way to pronounce.
Thank you. My lock is Golden State over the Pellies on Friday,
all right.
mainly because
I'm done betting on the Pellies to win. By the way,
yeah,
it screwed me every single time.
Well, that and also Zion got hurt, so. We'll have to see about that. And that whole entire fiasco was nuts, blaming the refs for how bad they're. I mean, that was stupid.
They got fined, $250,000 or something, or $25,000, something like that. David Griffin got fined.
Yeah, that was crazy. So my upset is the O's, the Baltimore Orioles over the Mets on Tuesday. I'm all aboard the John Means train.
You should be.
I'm hoping.
Welcome.
I'm hoping
I've
that
been
dude.
a John Means.
Yeah.
Oh,
you called it.
For a long time.
You called it, man. And
yeah,
I'm hoping.
I love that guy.
I love that guy.
I'm in love with John.
I'm hoping he can be in the race and the running later in the season for the Cy Young because now that would be a fun thing to see.
Absolutely.
I'd like to know when the last Orioles player, if ever there was an Orioles player that was even in the top 3. The only one I can come up with is possibly Mike Messina, but that's the only one I can think of as being close.
It's probably been a while. Probably not since like Jim Palmer.
Yeah, 50 years ago.
It's been a while.
But I got the Baltimore Orioles over the Mets on Tuesday.
That's a good pick. The Orioles are one of those kind of spunky teams that they'll pull out a nice win every now and then, especially with John Means on the mound. So he's
they're playing the
really,
Mets
really
in
solid.
New York against Marcus Stroman,
Right.
so that's kind of why I thought it might be a kind of an upset because they're probably not going to be favored. They might have a plus 1.5 run line.
NL East fans will be keeping an eye on Phillies Braves tonight on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Obviously, that game will probably be over by the time you listen to this. But besides that, people, we got a fun week of sports ahead. Playoff pushes for the Caps, for the Wiz, the final games for all these teams here before the postseason. So you're going to get some great postseason coverage here by this show and others on The Contender. Again, we encourage you to check out The Contender. That's Contender with a K, thecontender.com. Follow them on Twitter as well. And then follow us on Twitter, of course, at the DC Crossover. We gained a couple new followers recently.
Ooh.
And we want more. Let's get to 100 at least. Come on. It's embarrassing to be in the 2 digits. Come on, get us to 100. And then always follow Mike as well at Cerrone16. And especially if you're a fan of the Pens or the Rangers or something like that, fight with Mike. Try to fight with Mike on Twitter. Try to get blocked. See what you can do to get blocked by Mike on Twitter.
Well, it wasn't that hard this last time.
Before we leave, Mike, any final thoughts here to send the people out for a great week here in May?
I will say one thing. If you're betting on a guy with the last name Neto, don't bet on him because he really screwed me last night, and I don't think he made a single bucket possibly.
No.
And he scored 22 or something like that, his career high, 2 nights prior. I bet on him to make one single three-pointer I needed him to make, and he went 0 for 6 from the field. I'm like,
I'd say if you're looking for a little betting tip, look at the in-game props for Russell Westbrook's total points, rebounds, and assists.
Right.
Obviously, you can do the triple-double prop, but that's not going to get you much in return. But look at the totals. I did the totals the other night. It was like 51 or something like that.
Yep.
He blew by that. So I'd say that. If you're a FanDuel fan out there or whatever betting service you want to use, I'd say take a look at the in-game player props there, especially with Russell Westbrook here as he goes for the triple-double record. He's going to be going for that. And you know he's going to try and get it because he's Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
He's just a machine. That is Mike Cerrone. I am Ben Simpson. We will see you next week on The Contender, on Spotify, on iTunes, wherever you follow the show. We appreciate you. Have a good week.